From a man who studies world history with the same salacious intent as someone checking someone else's internet history for damaging material, this is The Daniel Natal Show. This week, the stock market took a beating, falling 19% on Monday, or 34,000 points. This was reportedly the result of a weak retail earnings report, as well as news that the Federal Reserve is going to cut off liquidity by raising interest rates. With the news of cheap borrowing possibly ending, lots of powerful people withdrew their money from the market. What interested me more than the news of the modern Federal Reserve was a historical overview of central banks in America. The first central bank we had was established in 1791 as the first national bank of the United States. It was pushed for by Alexander Hamilton, our first Secretary of the Treasury, and though Jefferson, Madison, Henry Clay, and others said that the Constitution gave the Feds no authority to create a bank, it was pushed through anyway, with a 20-year charter. Before we get there, we have to understand why this happened. Under the Articles of Confederation, the states had all the power. There was one small branch of federal government, a Continental Congress with delegates from the states making decisions. There was no president and no Senate. America was a pure republic. People almost immediately started complaining at the shortcomings of having a pure republic. For one, the states kept bickering amongst each other and not helping each other out. Secondly, merchants complained that their ships kept getting attacked and there was no one to protect them. We got more protection from the King of England, they carped. Thirdly, and more powerfully, financiers who had funded the revolution by buying bonds wanted their money back when the bonds came to maturity. Instead of receiving money back that had retained its value, they were given fiat currency which had a fraction of the value. The financiers were furious because they felt that they were being cheated. And they were. The problem was, the states were supposed to be funding the federal layer of government, and few ponied up money, so the feds just printed up worthless fiat currency to pay their debts. Charles Beard writes about this in an economic interpretation of the Constitution of the United States. In it, he says that there were three groups pressing to throw out the Articles of Confederation and to constitute a government upon a wholly new basis, according to Hamilton. In the second draft of the United States government, we would abandon a pure republic and adopt Cicero's mixed form of government. It would have aspects of monarchy, aristocracy, and republic. For monarchy, we created the presidency. For aristocracy, we established the Senate. And for republic, we invented the House of Representatives. The three groups pushing for this new mixed form of government were the merchants, who wanted their ships protected, the land speculators, who wanted settlers in the territories protected from Indians, and the financiers, who wanted a constitution where money was tied to gold. Charles Beard wrote, "Now it is to creditors seeking relief against paper money and the assaults of the agrarians in general. Now it is to the holders of federal securities which are depreciating toward the vanishing point. But above all, it is to the owners of personalty anxious to find a foil against the attacks of leveling democracy that the authors of the Federalist address their most cogent arguments in favor of ratification." It is true there is much discussion of the details of the new framework of government, to which even some friends of reform took exceptions. But Madison and Hamilton both knew that these were incidental matters when compared with the sound basis upon which the superstructure rested. Beard said that Hamilton, above all, wanted the new form of federal government, which he saw as being more like monarchy in England, led by the president. Hamilton was also the banker's inside man in America. The ink wasn't even dry on the new Constitution when he was violating it to install a central bank in America. A fight broke out almost immediately between Thomas Jefferson, who wanted the people to rule, and Hamilton, who wanted a top-down form of governance. Why was a central bank so important to Hamilton then? What happened was simple. The federal layer of government wanted to avoid state power. If the states were giving money to the feds, then the states would be in charge. There's an Arab proverb that says, "It is the servant who accepts the silver." Whoever is paying the salary is the master. In the original setup, the states were paying the salary and the feds were relying on them for money. After the new government came in, the feds decided to bypass the states and go to a bank to get money. Theoretically, if there were infrastructure projects and stuff, a government should fund this through raising taxes. If you go to a bank, it's more expensive because in borrowing the money, you have to pay the cost back plus interest. But Weasley politicians, too afraid to raise taxes for fear that the voters would vote them out, preferred getting the money through borrowing it from a bank instead. The result of this was that citizens would no longer be the master of the country, but the bankers would be. Instead of using taxes to fund things, as ethics and sound government called for, they would use debt to finance projects. In another sense, what was happening went beyond mere funding issues. You saw a power struggle emerge. This was the first time you saw the federal layer of government go rogue and try to break away from the rest of the country, and using the bank to do it. The states were the check on their power. By getting their funding elsewhere, that check on federal power was removed. It's also why in the Articles, delegates on the federal layer were paid by the states, whereas in the new Constitution, senators and congressmen would be paid by the feds, not the states. This removed a layer of state power. Today, instead of the states controlling the feds, it's now the feds controlling the states with funding. To rein in the federal government, we would have to disband the Federal Reserve and make the feds reliant on the states again for all their funding. Well, that's what the citizens did. After the 20-year charter ran out on the First National Bank of the United States, its charter was not renewed. This happened in 1811. The bankers in London were infuriated by this, of course, because it hampered their control of the new country. And by the following year, we had the War of 1812, where the British attacked us with a view to installing a new central bank in America. Sadly, they succeeded. Andrew Jackson would fight the Second National Bank of America and disband it. He earned the distinction of being the only U.S. president to get America completely out of debt. After that one was disbanded in 1833, America wouldn't have a central bank again until 1913, when the London banking cartel got its third central bank installed in the United States. But that's the subject for another video. As for this one, understand what a central bank does. It allows the feds to go off the reservation. Instead of looking to the states and the people to fund things and be in charge, they use a bank to short-circuit this. So now international financiers are in charge. If we want to reform the political system, it's of the utmost importance to reform the financial system. If you've gotten this far, you must like our content. If you haven't already, head to thenewamerican.com and subscribe to our print magazine published twice a month and daily online. It's the essential news source for freedom-loving Americans.